Where are the test cruises? I know I'm not the only one asking that question. It is the next thing that we're looking for on the road to the restart of cruising. And for the most part, we've had very little information. I don't know how many days it's been since the no-sail order expired and the conditional framework for sailing came into place, but we're supposed to have test cruises. Finally, I got an update. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the Cruise News Show. I'm your host Tony, here with the latest cruise news updates. Well, look, we're in the throes of a pandemic. It looks bleak, but at some point the sun will shine again and businesses that we love will open again, and that includes the cruise lines, and they need to be ready. And how are they going to be ready? They're going to have completed their test sailings. The test sailings doesn't involve paying passengers. It's something they could do with their own crew members. This is something that could be occurring even while all the shutdowns continue to occur. For goodness sakes, the cruise ships are in the United States, and we've heard people over the last few months raise this very concern. The cruise lines, they know what they should be doing, and they just seem like they're dragging their feet. What's the deal with the test sailings? Well, we got some new information, and it's interesting. It looks like there's a fight brewing, and you might be surprised who's fighting or not. But one thing you'll never be surprised about is my desire and my invitation for you to be a part of this virtual cruising community here on YouTube, for you to be a part of Lido Loca. Please consider subscribing to this YouTube channel today with the notification bell on. That way you don't miss out on any of these shows. Thanks in advance. Earlier this week, Carnival Corporation released its earnings, and tucked inside of its earnings document, they had a section that talks about what's going on in relation to the return to cruising, what's going on in relation to the test sailings. It's very generic, corporate speak. Let me give it to you. I'll read it to you. It's not very long. This is what Carnival said in its earnings report about this framework for conditional sailing and the test sailings. This is what they said. The framework consists of several initial requirements that cruise ship operators will need to follow before resuming guest operations. Further, the framework is subject to additional technical instructions and orders from the CDC and may change based on public health considerations. Many uncertainties remain as to the specifics, timing, and the cost of implementing these requirements. On these earnings calls, there's analysts, and somebody raised their hand and asked the CEO of Carnival Corporation, Arnold Donald, well, what does that mean? It doesn't sound good. What does that mean? And this is what Arnold Donald says. He said, it's a work in progress. He mentioned that they are in phase 1 of the framework. He says it's a work in progress. The additional guidelines for future phases have not yet been issued by the CDC. Now, wait a minute. We had the framework document. Everything was supposed to be in there so these cruise lines knew what they needed to do to go sailing. And now we got Arnold Donald telling us that he needs more information. Is that what he's saying? They pressed him even further, just for clarification. Are you saying that the CDC is holding up the test sailings for Carnival Corporation? He says, yes, we are waiting, but obviously we are doing a lot of things. We started to bring ships back to the U.S. and meeting the criteria that is currently out there to be in a position to subsequently do test sailings. But to give a specific timing on the test cruises, we need additional guidance back from the CDC. All right, so how do you take that? We know that the very first step of the first phase is that cruise ships have to be qualified. They have to have the green status when it comes to moving their crew on and off of cruise ships via commercial flights. This is something that happened prior to the conditional framework for sailing. This is something that they worked on early on in the pandemic. This is step one. And if you look at the CDC website, you'll see that there's a mix of Carnival cruise ships that have a green status, and there are a few Carnival cruise ships that have a red status. Without more clarification, it's hard to understand what Arnold Donald is talking about. Is he saying that the ships that are having trouble getting through that first hoop that are red, that they need more information on that? Or is he saying that they need more information from the CDC on how to get test cruises going? Either way, it's troubling that at this point in the process, weekly calls between Carnival Corporation and the CDC, at this point in the process, they're still trying to figure out how to get to the point of doing test sailings. Now, certainly where we stand with the virus right here in January, there doesn't need to be any sailings. But again, the point that I'm making is there will come a time where these businesses need to fire it back up. And if the preliminary work is not being done so that they can fire it back up, then when it starts again, these businesses are going to be way behind. Who are we pointing the finger at today? Who's the villain in this story today? Well, at least today, at least from Carnival Corporation's perspective, at least from the perspective of Arnold Donald, the obstruction, the slowdown, he's putting it squarely on the CDC. I've been hesitant to pile on the CDC. I've been hesitant to pile on the cruise lines. We're living in an unprecedented time with circumstances beyond so many people's control. But some of this comes down to simple leadership. Somebody has to be leading the way. I guess it would be easy to say the CDC just doesn't care about what happens with cruising. There is no vested interest from a U.S. government perspective when it comes to cruising. There are a lot of U.S. jobs that are tied to the cruise industry, but if you look at all the components of the cruise industry, they're not U.S. based. These companies are not incorporated in the United States. These ships are not flagged in the United States. These ships were not built in the United States. These ships don't have U.S. workers predominantly. Only one cruise ship out there meets those criteria. The Pride of America was built in the United States, flagged in the United States, but its parent company is not incorporated in the United States. So yeah, it's feasible that the plight of the restart of the cruise industry not that high on the CDC's list. But my point is this: why engage in a process? Why have the framework? Why say that you're going to put out requirements and then not do that? Is that actually what is happening, or is there something else playing out here? This is not a great story. Carnival just canceled through March. They didn't even cancel April. And then you get all this information here that shows that they're having trouble getting the information that they need for the test sailings. I want to be positive. I want to be confident about April. For goodness sakes, the Mardi Gras is supposed to sell in April. But unless we get some sort of different story coming out of this whole test cruise scenario, how do you even be confident for April? I mean, I get why people are saying, oh, cruising's not going to happen for a while, but it's going to happen at some point. At some point, it will be a yes instead of a no. But man, in addition to the turmoil that the virus is playing in the world, it seems like this behind the scenes interchange between the cruise lines and the CDC, it may be wreaking some havoc too. This has got to tighten up. That's what I think. Now, this is only Carnival. I haven't seen these kind of stories coming out from the other major cruise lines. Who knows? But what we do know is that the test sailings are the next thing that we are looking for as an indication that we are moving closer to a cruise restart. And honestly, the information coming out of this Carnival earnings document and the clarification or additional information provided by the CEO there, I don't have the warm and fuzzies. My concern is this: there will be some point where the virus is under control, where this is not a global pandemic anymore, where ports will open in foreign countries, where ports will open domestically here in the United States, when we will be ready as consumers to cruise again, as a country be ready to cruise again, and we won't be ready because of this kind of thing. I hope that is not the case. What do you make of all this exchange between Arnold Donald and the CDC? What's the real story there? Is there more behind the words, or is it just the CDC blocking Carnival? That's an interesting conversation. Let's have it down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching the show today. Please show your support by hitting the like button. This is Tony with Lido Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.